Welcome into today's edition of Just the Truth. Glad to have you join me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. 3 officers from a US Marshals Fugitive Task Force were killed, unfortunately. 5 other officers wounded after a suspect opened fire after being served a warrant. This happened in Charlotte, North Carolina, Monday afternoon. We have the details. Student protesters are still creating havoc on campuses around the country, even though some of the protesters evidently aren't quite sure what they're protesting. A video has gone viral. 2 young ladies admitting to a local reporter in New York City they're unsure of what the protests are all about. We have an update on the meeting between President Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over the weekend. Is DeSantis going to be the next vice president? And from the Daily Caller, Pentagon says it can't calculate diversity training costs because Congress defunded DEI offices. 864-477-5639 is the Firmin Ford text line. Your comments are welcome, as are your emails, joey@joeyhudson.com.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but you know they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
3 officers from a U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force were killed and 5 other officers wounded after a suspect opened fire after being served a warrant in Charlotte, North Carolina. This happened Monday afternoon, according to police. The shooting began when a U.S. Marshals task force attempted to serve a warrant for firearm possession by a convicted felon. During a Monday evening press briefing, authorities said the suspect officers were serving the warrant on was the one who initially opened fire. That suspect, police said, was found dead. Police believe 2 shooters may have been involved. They said 2 persons of interest were taken to the police station for further investigation. One person of interest is a 17-year-old juvenile. The other is a woman. Chief Johnny Jennings said during the presser, "We have 2 people of interest at the police station that are being questioned right now, and we have confirmed that the individual that was set up that we are serving the warrant on was the individual who fired the initial shots and was deceased in the front yard at the end of all of this." Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department Chief Johnny Jennings said the marshals were met with a barrage of gunfire.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Today's an absolute tragic day for the city of Charlotte and for the profession of law enforcement. Today we lost some heroes that are out to just simply trying to keep our community safe. I'm going to try to go through a series of events of how this all occurred and played out, and then tell you a little bit more about the injuries and the things that we had to endure today as a profession and as a city. So about 1:30 p.m. this afternoon, the US Marshals Fugitive Task Force went to the 5000 block of Galway Avenue in an attempt to serve a warrant on an individual for possession of firearm by a convicted felon. When they approached that individual, they were met with gunfire. Officers returned gunfire and struck the victim, who was later pronounced deceased in the front yard of the residence. As officers approached that individual, they then received additional gunfire from inside of the residence. So after a long standoff, we were able to clear this residence and confirm that there were 2 additional people inside. They were both brought to the police station as persons of interest, and we're trying to determine now what exactly occurred inside of the residence. Tragically, there were 3 members of the U.S. Marshals Task Force who were pronounced deceased, and there were 4 CMPD officers who were shot, one being in critical condition, who is now in the hospital fighting for his life. A total of 8 law enforcement officers were shot by the suspects in this house. So we are very early in the investigation. CMPD will lead this investigation. We still have a lot to uncover, a lot of questions that are not answered right now. So please respect the fact that I won't be able to answer some of the questions that you're going to have. But at the same time, We are going to diligently work on this to ensure that we bring a respect to these officers and these law enforcement officials that lost their lives today. And this is a good example of what we try to tell people every single day, that when we put on this uniform, that we don't have any guarantees that we'll return home. But yet we have a lot of great men and women across this entire country that do it every single day to make sure that you're safe in your communities.
Again, Police Chief Johnny Jennings of Charlotte, North Carolina. A total of 8 law enforcement officers were shot. 3 officers from the US Marshals Task Force, 1 deputy, and 2 task force officers were killed. 4 Charlotte police officers were injured, including 1 who sustained critical injuries, and another US Marshals Task Force officer was wounded as well. Jennings called the incident the most tragic one that he'd been involved in 32 years. He said, "I can't remember an incident where 3 law enforcement officers were injured and also 3 that were killed in the same incident." The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department initially reported that numerous officers were shot at the scene in the 5,000 block of Galway Drive in the Shannon Park neighborhood area of Charlotte. All officers were injured, were transported to hospitals. At 2:23 p.m., police confirmed that a SWAT team was on the scene and urged residents to stay inside of their homes and out of the area. Avoid the area, the police department said. Many roads are closed for faster ambulance transport. Please cooperate with authorities. Monday afternoon, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper confirmed that his office was aware of the shootings. Writing on X, he said, "I'm in contact with law enforcement concerning the tragic shooting in the Charlotte area, and we have offered state resources to help." Former FBI special agent in charge and Fox News contributor Nicole Parker spoke to Fox News Digital about the situation, saying, "These officers on this U.S. Marshals Task Force are the best and the brightest and the bravest. Each day when you walk out of the door for work, you understand you may never make it back home. I cannot say it enough. Americans need to back the blue. They aren't making huge sums of money, but their sacrifices are infinite and priceless." Student protesters are still creating havoc on campuses around the country, even though some of the protesters evidently aren't quite sure what they're protesting. A video has gone viral of a couple of young ladies who are Columbia University students but went down to NYU to offer their assistance. They're not quite sure about what, though. I'll tell you about that in just a moment. I've been sharing with you about my journey and my success with PhD weight loss and nutrition. Soon to come up on my 4-year anniversary of meeting Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. I've been able to maintain that 30 pounds that I lost almost 4 years ago for all of this time now. If you're listening today and you're still on the fence, you're just not quite sure, but you know that you need to lose weight, you know that you want to get healthy, let me encourage you, write this number down, 864-252-4925. Call PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. Call them today. Set up your initial consultation and tell them that Joey Hudson from Just the Truth sent you. Talk with them about your health. Talk with them about the weight that you'd like to lose. And I promise you, you will not regret making that call. You'll be able to sleep better. You'll be able to focus on things. You'll be able to do things that you haven't been able to do for many, many years now. Maybe play with the grandkids or the kids. Call 864-252-4925 or find them online at myphdweightloss.com. Start today, and by midsummer or so, you too can be talking about losing 10, 20, 30 pounds or more. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. Anti-Israel demonstrations at many colleges and universities across the country continue. At UT Austin, these protests were reignited Monday evening after protesters were arrested and forced off the university's south lawn. Mobs of protesters were reportedly moving to the university tower, which houses the university president and other administrative faculty. Another group was seen trying to block a bus exiting the campus. Police officers on the scene resorted to deploying mace and using tear gas against some of the protesters, who marched ahead, defying orders to retreat. These chaotic scenes come hours after dozens of protesters were taken into custody following the Austin Police Department's dispersal order against protesters who were gathering on the South Mall. Now, yesterday, the university and its law enforcement partners dismantled an encampment after anti-Israel protesters repeatedly ignored directives to comply with the rules and then physically and verbally assaulted dean and student staff who were attempting to remove the tents. In a statement obtained by Fox 7, the university said it received online threats over the weekend from a group organizing yesterday's protest. Those threats have been reported to local, state, and federal law enforcement, according to the report. Since October and prior to April 24th, no fewer than 13 pro-Palestinian free speech events were held on UT campus, and 4 since then, largely without incident, the university said in their statement. The university will continue to support the free speech and assembly rights of our community while also enforcing its institutional rules. The statement goes on to say, after protesters ignored repeated directives from both the administration and law enforcement officers to comply with institutional rules and remove tents assembled on the university south lawn, then physically engaged with and verbally assaulted dean and student staff who attempted to confiscate them, UT and partner law enforcement agencies dismantled an encampment and arrested several protesters. Baseball-sized rocks were found strategically placed within the encampment. The majority of protesters are believed to be unaffiliated with the university, according to the official release. Meanwhile, the University of Florida said Monday that anti-Israel protesters were given plenty of warnings to comply before they were arrested. In a statement, university spokesperson Steve Orlando said, "This is not complicated. The University of Florida is not a daycare, and we do not treat protesters like children. They knew the rules, they broke the rules, and they'll face the consequences. We can only hope." And that's the attitude that these other schools need to have. I love that. This is not a daycare. And it is simple. Rules are rules. You break them, you're going to suffer the consequences. It's just that simple. He noted that protesters, many of whom are outside agitators, were told that they could exercise their right to free speech and free assembly. He said, "We told them that clearly prohibited activities would result in a trespassing order from the UPD, barring them from all university properties for 3 years, and an interim suspension from the university," Orlando said. "For days, UPD patiently and consistently reiterated the rules. Today, individuals who refused to comply were arrested after UPD gave multiple warnings and multiple opportunities to comply." Meanwhile, a Jewish student at Columbia University in New York City filed a class action lawsuit against the learning institution, alleging the university had failed to provide a safe environment for its students. Along with filing the lawsuit, the student is also seeking an emergency injunction requiring the university to enforce its Statement of Ethical Conduct and Administrative Code of Conduct to provide safe and secure access to education free from harassment and discrimination, to allow the student and her peers to safely complete the semester in person. The lawsuit, filed by a second-year female Jewish student at Columbia University who is identified as CS, opens by acknowledging the importance of free and spirited debate on college campuses, adding that it's a unique American value and gives students the opportunity to learn how to analyze various viewpoints while developing positions and advocating for them. Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee yesterday suggested that any student who promotes terrorism or engages in terrorist acts on behalf of Hamas to be immediately added to the terrorist watch list and placed on the TSA no-fly list. Also, Senator Josh Hawley weighed in on the anti-Israel demonstrations that have swept college campuses, saying yesterday that on X, as he wrote, that students who participate ought to be expelled, the faculty fired, and the National Guard sent in to protect Jewish students on campus. Let's go to California, where University of Southern California senior Melina Ferraduni, remember me telling you that USC was canceling their graduation ceremonies. She joined America's Newsroom alongside her mother to discuss USC's decision to cancel her graduation ceremony after safety concerns mounted thanks to the anti-Israel protest. USC, again, one of many universities facing this difficult decision regarding commencement ceremonies as protests rage on their campuses. Columbia University reaffirmed its intent to hold a ceremony and warned protesters to clear out their encampment by 2 p.m. on Monday or face suspension. we'll see how that works out. I'm going to bet that the students are probably going to ignore that as well. However, USC did make the decision. They did cancel their graduation. Miss Ferradini talked about her disappointment upon learning that she would not be walking across the stage to accept her diploma.
Yeah, it was genuinely devastating. I was sitting in the classroom doing a final review session when I got the email from the provost, and it came to the point where my eyes began to water. I was so distraught. I had to ask the professor to excuse me. I was so heartbroken that everything I'd worked for is now being taken away.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre dodged several questions during her press briefing on Monday regarding the responses of many universities in the U.S. as these anti-Israel protests continue and turning violent. One reporter yesterday asked Jean-Pierre whether President Biden or anyone else in the White House had spoken with leadership at Columbia University and if the president was happy with how school administrators are handling the decision. She didn't want to talk about it. She totally ignored the question.
So got to be super mindful. These are institutions. Some of them are private, some of them are public, and it is up to their leadership, university leadership and colleges to make that decision. Not going to weigh in on that from here. We're going to continue to say all Americans have the right to peacefully protest. At the same time, we have to call out any hateful rhetoric that we hear. Anti-Semitism is wrong, and so we're going to continue to do that.
So you've heard all of this, and this was just a quick recap of where we are as many, many universities across the country are facing these violent demonstrations. The crazy part of all of this, some of these young people, they don't even know what they're protesting. They have no clue. A video has gone viral of a young Columbia University student who was interviewed in New York City after she and a friend were asked to join the NYU student protesters to show their support. So they traveled down from the upper part of Manhattan, where Columbia University is, down to NYU to show their support of their NYU fellow students. Now listen as these two young ladies being questioned by this reporter clearly do not have a clue of what they're doing, why they're there, what the NYU students are protesting, and what they're protesting. Listen in.
And what would you say is the main goal with tonight's protest?
I think the goal is just showing our support for Palestine and demanding that NYU stops. I honestly don't know all of what NYU's doing.
Is there something that NYU's doing?
I really don't know. I'm pretty sure they're... Do you know what NYU's doing?
About what?
About Israel. Why are we protesting here?
Palestine will be free!
I wish I was more educated.
I'm not either.
Oh.
I came from Columbia. I was there up at Columbia, and we came down. They said NYU students needed our support. So I came down. I heard there's lots of cops. Some people were saying it was getting dangerous.
Now, how crazy is that? She turns and looks at the young lady with her. Do you know what NYU's doing? And then she admits, now the lady, you can't see the video here. I watched the video. The student with her has a mask on, like a black mask that you wore during COVID. And she admits she's not quite sure either. She's the one who says, well, maybe I should be a little more educated on this. You think? You think maybe you should educate yourself before you are caught up in a protest, closing down a university campus, potentially canceling other students' graduation ceremonies? You think maybe you should educate yourself on what you're there protesting about? I hope their mamas saw them and called their butts home, told them to get home right now and give them a good talking to. I can tell you, Nana Hudson would not have allowed me to be out protesting like this on some campus. I'd have been terrified. 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. The Firmin Ford text line. You can also leave your voice messages. Love to get those, and your emails, joey@joeyhudson.com. I mean, really, can you believe this? These kids out there, and they have no clue. They're creating all of this chaos, and they don't know what they're protesting. They don't know the politics. I would bet that most of them, if you ask them what Hamas stands for, or what the Palestinians stand for, or what even the Gaza Strip is, I bet you they don't know. I bet they can't tell you. The Daily Caller writes, Pentagon says it can't calculate diversity training costs because Congress defunded DEI offices. This is another thing that is just as absurd. I got all the details in just a moment. First, let me talk with you about that new car that you need and where you should buy it. Firmin Ford in Lawrence. That's the only place you need to be thinking about if you're in the market for a new vehicle, or maybe you need a good pre-owned vehicle that you can trust, one that you know has been checked out and certified. It's never been more important, I believe, to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in our community, not some car dealership that's owned by some corporate conglomerate who's based in another state somewhere. When you go by Firmin Ford, when you call Firmin Ford, when you email Firmin Ford, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line with every single transaction. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin, they take that very seriously. Let me encourage you to head over to Lawrence to Firmin Ford if you're looking to purchase a vehicle. Their inventory is better than it's ever been of new cars. They have a great selection of pre-owned vehicles as well. Just go to FirminFord.com, check out their inventory. Hey, do you need service on your existing vehicle and you don't want to have to wait weeks or maybe even months to get that done? Firmin Ford can offer you that service as well. And the good news is it does not have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. And you do not have had to purchase the vehicle at Firmin Ford either. Again, find them online at FirminFord.com, FirminFord.com. The Pentagon told members of Congress that they weren't able to provide a required accounting of diversity training because it didn't have enough people working in diversity, equity, and inclusion positions, according to the Daily Caller News Foundation. Congress mandated that the Pentagon compile a report detailing how much the entire military spent on diversity training, salaries for DEI administrators, and any impacts on recruiting and retention across the force. This report was due March the 1st, according to last year's National Defense Authorization Act, which sets defense policy for the next fiscal year. But the Pentagon's nearly 2 months behind the due date for the report after the same Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2024 slashed the salaries of DEI personnel, effectively gutting the departments, the Daily Caller News Foundation has learned. A legislative liaison representing the Department of Defense said in a correspondence shared with the Daily Caller News Foundation, this report is delayed due to lack of DEI manning. We do not have an estimated completion date at this time. Republican Indiana Representative Jim Banks, who chairs the House Armed Services Military Personnel Subcommittee, told the Daily Caller that the response shows the Pentagon is simply covering up Joe Biden's politicization of our military. The 2024 NDAA capped annual salaries for diversity, equity, and inclusion administrators at $70,000, which means most officials will have to find other jobs or accept difficult pay cuts, according to data from the Pentagon's Personnel Office provided to Republican Missouri Senator Eric Schmidt. It also banned the Pentagon from hiring into DEI-focused roles until Congress received the results of an audit of all DoD offices and programming. Banks told the Daily Caller the Biden DoD spends over $100 million a year on DEI, but apparently they don't have enough DEI staff to provide the House Armed Services Committee with a simple report about how they're using all their money. It's ridiculous, Banks said. The military calculated the total cost in dollars and number of hours spent on the extremism stand down on February 5th, 2021, required after the January 6th Capitol riots, and on training, 1 million and 5.8 million man hours, according to the report, noting that Congress asked the military to supply the total cost of training in DEI, the amount spent on salaries for civilian personnel working on DEI positions, and how the objectives of the DEI and extremism training conducted in the last 5 fiscal years were satisfied by the training. Congress sought to probe how the DOD's emphasis on diversity and inclusion influenced recruitment, promotions, discharges, and court martials for violating the Pentagon's extremism orders or regulations. Lawmakers asked for a description of the training materials for 2023, the year covered by the bill. Armed Services Chairman Mike Rogers told the Daily Caller, House Republicans fought hard to gut Biden's DEI bureaucracy at the Department of Defense. He said the Republican majority's effort is to restore the military's focus on capability and lethality instead of Biden's far-left political priorities. On the Firmin Ford text line, your comments are welcome. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. You can leave a voice message and your comments. You can send your comments to joey@joeyhudson.com. Albert writes, Christy Nome put the animal, it's not a pet, down the way ranchers and farmers I've associated with over the years have also done. A bad animal costs a farmer or rancher profits. The difference is they don't write about it. It's not an easy decision. Albert, I get that. And I know a little bit about farming myself. This was a bird dog that was about, 14, 18 months old, not even 2 years old yet. She put him down because he scared, he was too energetic, and he scared the birds on a hunting on their hunting trips. It wasn't that he was harmful to other farm animals. I get that. Sometimes you do have to put animals down on a farm if they're older cows, older horses. This was a young dog who was too hyper and was not, his training as a bird dog was not going too well. That was not a reason to shoot the dog in the head. You could have given the dog to a family who wanted a pet and not dispose of it. Chris writes, I think the governor needs to be taken to the gravel pit and have the same done to her for not having a heart. That may be a little bit extreme, Chris, but not quite. I mean, you're right. She doesn't have a heart. Pete says, Joey, Nome took herself out of the VP contention with her open relationship with Corey Lewandowski. I mean, cheats on her husband, wasn't keeping it on the down low, and then the story of shooting the dog comes out. Tells you a lot about her personality. Ginger writes, if Nome had admitted to an abortion instead of killing a puppy, many would be celebrating her for that decision. You're probably right, Ginger. Jeff writes on the Firmin Ford text line, you're spot on. She just ended her political career, and you don't kill a 14-month-old dog. You take it to the animal shelter or someone else to train. Come on, man. My wife said to tell you she didn't understand how people could be this upset over a dog but agree to kill 8-month-old babies, or any baby for that matter. Your wife's right, Jeff. Appreciate your comment. Susan writes on the Firmin Ford text line, any college or university taken over by Hamas supporters ought to turn their properties over to them and shut down their physical plants. No power, no heat, no air, no refrigeration, and no water, so they can't even flush the toilets. Pam writes, about Governor Nome shooting her young dog. If she has further political ambitions, she was a fool to put the story in her book. Did she not remember that Mitt Romney was vilified for putting his dog in a crate on top of his car during a road trip? Texter writes, Joey, the protesters want their crimes forgiven just as they expect their student loans to also be forgiven. Maybe so. Tony writes on the Firmin Ford text line, Joey, I don't mind DeSantis being VP, but a lot of conservatives have said he's too extreme, and I'm afraid he's turned a lot of Trump supporters off and won't vote. He may not be the choice. Donald Trump may choose someone else to be his vice president, and Ron DeSantis still may have a prominent role in the administration. Remember, DeSantis still says he doesn't want to be VP. Faye writes on the Firmin Ford text line, good morning, Joey. I enjoyed your clips on YouTube. Oh, thank you, Faye. Especially the one of Peg sitting in the back of your truck. She did good getting up there. As always, we, your fans, look forward to your calming voice each morning. God bless you. Well, thank you, Faye. Faye's referring to one of our creative videos that Peg and Jesse and Simon and I did over the weekend. If you missed it, go to YouTube and search for Joey Hudson, and you'll see the video of Jesse and Simon wanted to go for a ride. I can't tell you what exactly happened. You just need to go to YouTube and watch it. Our text of encouragement today: a positive attitude causes a chain reaction of positive thoughts, events, and outcomes. It is a catalyst, and it sparks extraordinary results. God bless Joel. Thank you, Joel. Your comments are welcome, too, on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-5639. I told you yesterday about a meeting between President Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over the weekend. It was the first time the two had met face-to-face since Trump easily defeated DeSantis in the Iowa caucuses, forcing DeSantis to drop out before the New Hampshire primary. We have an update on that meeting. First, let me talk with you about Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Portions of today's show made possible by Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Are you tired of buying appliances from inexperienced sales staff who have no appliance knowledge? They have so many different options, brands, and features when you go shopping for appliances these days. It's kind of hard to figure out which one's right for you, isn't it? And you can't afford to buy the wrong one because appliances are also very expensive. That's why I recommend shopping at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. They have an A-plus Better Business Bureau rating, nearly perfect reviews on Google, and the team at Discounted Appliance Warehouse has the knowledge that you need to have confidence in your purchase. They'll show you around the warehouse, over 11,000 square feet slammed full of new appliances. Quite often, you can buy it today and use it today when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. They have expert installation and award-winning service department that I can tell you firsthand. They're Johnny on the spot because Johnny, he has his team out there in no time ready to take care of it. And they have extended warranties to take care of you as well. They'll cover you well past the sale. You're more than just a credit card swipe at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens, and find them online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. Former President Donald Trump yesterday celebrated what he called a, quote, great meeting with Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over the weekend, who he said has expressed full and enthusiastic support of his bid for the White House. Trump wrote on Truth Social, "I'm very happy to have the full and enthusiastic support of Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. We had a great meeting yesterday." The Sunday meeting was set up by Florida real estate investor and developer Steve Witkoff, a mutual friend of both Donald Trump and Governor Ron DeSantis. It was held at the ultra-exclusive Shell Bay Club Golf Course and Yacht Club in Hollandale Beach, Florida. Witkoff, a GOP mega donor, has donated reportedly $300,000 or more to the Make America Great Again, Inc. super PAC backing Trump for president. This according to the Federal Election Commission records. Trump said the conversation mostly concerned how we would work closely together to make America great again. Also discussed was the future of Florida, which is fantastic, he said. "I greatly appreciate Ron's support in taking back our country from the worst president in the history of the United States," he added. "November 5th is a big day." The meeting between the pair on Sunday, again, was first reported by the Washington Post. Trump and DeSantis hadn't spoke since the end of the primary season, according to the outlet, which noted that their meeting lasted several hours. DeSantis, of course, 44 years old to Trump 77, dropped out of the race shortly after his second-place finish in Iowa caucuses. You know, that's the one thing I do have to give Ron DeSantis credit on. He knew when to fold. Unlike Nikki Haley, who stayed in the race way too long, Ron DeSantis, after he did not do well, and that had to be a tough decision. After months and months and months of campaigning and spending millions upon millions of dollars, and you go to Iowa, which is the first contest in the primary, you lose, you come in second, but you still lose, and you have to make the decision to get out of the race when one state, you haven't even had a primary vote yet, and he got out before New Hampshire. Again, you have to applaud Ron DeSantis for knowing when to get out. And you also have to applaud him for announcing his endorsement of Trump that very same day. Trump revealed earlier this year that DeSantis was among several names on his short list for his 2024 Republican ticket. The Florida governor, of course, has said he has no interest in potentially being Trump's vice president. He was quoted as saying, "People are mentioning me as a potential vice president. I am not doing that." He told Republican allies in February in a thank you call after he suspended his campaign. We all know that you never say never in politics, though, right? That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Hey, appreciate you joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails with the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Just search for Joey Hudson, and you'll be able to see that video that Faye mentioned in her text message earlier. Jesse and Simon want to go for a ride. It's an interesting little video. You need to watch it. So go to YouTube, search for Joey Hudson. Thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward Just the Truth to friends and family. We need to build our community as we head into the June primaries and especially the November general elections. And the way we beat Joe Biden and the Democrats is through educating people. And no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. So just take a moment right now before you forget it. Click on the share button and send Just the Truth to a friend or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. Just send it to your entire contact list. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Keep your emails coming to joey@joeyhudson.com. We're back again tomorrow. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.